Welcome to Birken Forest Monastery live stream. I'm Ajahn Sona, and today we are snowing at this elevation. Perhaps you saw it in the preliminaries. And we will see how our new satellite dish works in the snow. If there are any interruptions, you will know that it is Canadiana. Answer period. The whole structure of this live stream is just an opportunity for people to ask questions and get a moderately in-depth response. If you're interested in the Dhamma and more in-depth responses, you can go to my YouTube channel, and some of the topics that we have here are explored in depth. But we usually answer 8 or 10 questions, and don't feel frustrated if your question is not addressed. We also keep some of the questions for the next week as well. So sometimes we splice in questions that have been pre-asked and ones that are asked live. So bear with us, and it's another reason for staying tuned for next week's broadcast. So let's start with our first question, and we have Bodhipala asking the question today. Pia is away on a little deeper retreat, and so Bodhipala will ask the questions today.
Our first question is from Ludovic Brossal from Quebec, Canada. I read suttas from the Nikayas, and often I stumble on a sutta that is very hard to believe, like the sutta on the 32 marks of a great man. I tend to try and register the feelings or intent behind the words, instead of the literal meanings of the words. I realize this could lead me astray without proper insight. Is this a correct interpretation?
Well, this particular sutta on the 32 marks of the great man, there's other suttas and commentaries that discuss minor marks as well. So these are major marks or bodily characteristics, dealing basically with the body. And this is not new to Buddhism. This idea that the bodies are born with characteristics that indicate their past and possibly their future were highly developed in various Vedic sources. There's a commentary, I believe, with 1,600 different marks which indicate both the past and the future of a person. So this is an adaptation. This is more or less a religious story, and particularly it should resonate with you the 3 wise men coming to visit Jesus in the manger, in the stables. In fact, that story may have been borrowed from Buddhism. In a way, that seemed to have been a tradition to ask various religious figures to come and inspect a baby. Now, this 32 marks of a great man are when the Bodhisattva, remember he's not the Buddha yet, he's a Bodhisattva, is he's only a few days old. So they're invited to look at the baby's body and see its characteristics. So this is when they determine that he has very special characteristics. Now, I wouldn't take this too literally, because certainly if it's as they describe, the Bodhisattva's arms would be extraordinarily long. He's supposed to be, while standing, able to cover his kneecaps with the palm of his hand. Now that makes a grotesque body symmetry. It's not possible that he appeared this way. He would be a very strange looking person. But each of these marks actually have symbolic meaning and should be interpreted that way. That they are poetic descriptions, almost like Paul Bunyan. It is an imposition and is exaggerated and poetic, and I'm sure they understood the spiritual language at the time. So I wouldn't take it as literal medical science. Each of these have spiritual significance, and you will see that the Buddha, now what they have is a controversy between the destiny of this bodhisattva. This is the really interesting part of the sutta. He only has two possible futures. One is as a world-ruling emperor, and the other is as a Buddha. And you may ask again how these gentlemen who came to visit him could possibly know what a Buddha is, because there weren't any. The Buddha is awakening by himself, not from other teachers, and announcing a new doctrine, and his own title that he adopts is the Buddha, the awakened one. Now, how they could have known that is essentially impossible. But what they probably meant was that he would be an influential or profoundly influential religious leader, or a profoundly dominant political, social leader. And this is, so these two fates, and it's very interesting to meditate on the fact that a religious leader is more significant than a world-ruling emperor, that he has more effect because the teachings last longer in time and affect the lives of people in a deeper, more interior way. A world-ruling emperor who is kindly and charismatic can elevate people's lives greatly in his lifetime, but empires don't last, things fall apart, so the kind of intense interest we see in the modern times of what political system can do, or restructuring of society can do, is somewhat shallow compared to what a deep philosophical or religious idea can do for people over time. So the 32 marks of the Bodhisattva should be just used as a poem about greatness in the emotional dimension, the religious emotional dimension, indicating great possibilities for this child, and not be concerned to literalize it too much. And then you're probably in the right tone for reading the suttas as well. I think that the society at the time, and probably right up to modern times, were well aware of the difference between spiritual language and literal scientific type language. And poetry often goes closer to the truth than literality. So I would take it in that spirit. Yes. Okay. Bodhi, next question.
Our next question is live from Jonathan. Ajahn, I have heard of practitioners developing special powers, such as walking through solid objects and such. Is this so? Does it matter?
Well, this is another area to decide whether these are meant literally or spiritually, or in some ways poetically. That, I mean, there are many ways to if you're an English major studying poetry, there are many ways to talk about meeting and passing through barriers in life. And one is that certain attitudes allow you to pass through what were formerly impediments. And so what matters is that if the language is merely literal and somebody can walk through a wall, I personally don't think it's very interesting, and I wouldn't spend much of my life trying to walk through walls. I wouldn't dedicate my life to either levitating or walking through walls. It's a shallow and rather trivial goal, isn't it? But if it has greater meaning in that the impediments to your freedom of well-being, the lightness of your spirit, that barriers in the world and even the sense of time is altered because of a raising of the emotional quality of your life, then it's a worthwhile project. In the suttas, you'll hear of monks and nuns flying through the sky or levitating and so forth. And now that's an astonishing thing, but we all do it in modern times. We get on planes and fly, and it's rather a boring experience. It does get you to destinations quicker, but I wouldn't spend much time cultivating that opportunity. It's better to just get on a plane. I would say these are time senses and spiritual senses of being unhindered, buoyant, light, not feeling suppressed or repressed by time. In other words, time doesn't drag. I would say that a journey, for instance, they talk about moving somehow great distances very rapidly. This is like time flies when you're having fun. You fly when you are unburdened with emotional heaviness. You fly. All songs and poems all speak in these modes. Do you know? I hope you know the song "Fly Me to the Moon," which is a rather corny jazz song, and it's not about flying to the moon, and it's explained in the song that this is really language about falling in love. So it feels like you've flown to the moon and you can have springtime on Jupiter or Mars. In other words, I'm in love. So we seem to understand this language, but when it comes to religious texts, we get all literal. So I would avoid that and look for lightness of spirit, the capacity to walk 4 inches off the ground if your emotional burdens are relieved. And so this is the where you should look for the meaning of these things. Okay, well, let's move on to the next question, Bodhi.
Our next question is from Alex in Catalonia, Spain, and it's a combination of one he has just posted in the chat and one he has sent previously. Dear Ajahn, I underwent an intense meditation retreat where I practiced samadhi for about 12 hours a day for 3 months. As I have come back to a normal setting, I find that my mind is immensely attached to the breath. Without my putting in any effort, my mind stays there, and it becomes almost impossible to shift my focus of attention. This makes operating in a normal life a difficult task. For example, I sometimes have trouble understanding people in conversation, or I become absorbed into the breath when performing tasks that require very low concentration. If I do not feed my mind with objects of concentration, anxiety comes up. If I give in and become absorbed, the anxiety immediately disappears. But I become completely oblivious to everything around me. There seems to be no way out of this trap. In fact, after a few hours of samadhi practice, it seems that the concentration generated can be used by the hindrances. Is this a normal effect of such intense practice? Should I expect it to wear off? What do you suggest I do to lead a normal life?
Well, yes, that sounds like a rather intense, and it sounds like you have enormous dedication to actually have entered into a 3-month retreat like that and meditated 12 hours a day. My goodness. So I would not suggest that for people, lay people, abruptly doing that. It's possible that somebody, after probably several years of development, might be able to sustain something like that, but that's an awfully radical experience. And I even, for instance, in this monastery, I give 10-day retreats of various kinds. Some are even on the jhanas. Some are mindfulness retreats, loving kindness retreats, and they're 10 days long. And I don't let anybody without experience come to them. To walk in off the street as an ordinary citizen of the modern world and to sit in absolute silence with restricted diet and location and the topic of thought and no distractions, etc., can be a traumatic experience for somebody who is not understand this and moved in a gradual way towards this. And it is plain to see that people actually have psychotic breaks sometimes, or negative experiences from intense meditation retreats where irresponsibly, and I'm talking to teachers of these types of retreats that just welcome people in without checking on their background, and sort of in a factory type situation, put them through a extended meditation retreat. This can be dangerous for people's mental health. And I don't know how this gets going. By the way, look in the suttas for a 10-day retreat for lay people, or a month retreat, or even a 3-day retreat for lay people. You will not find such a thing. The Buddha never gave a 10-day retreat for lay people. The monks are leaving everything behind, and each monk has a teacher. And that teacher has only a few students that they are coaching personally and living side by side with for an extended period of time. One needs to be a junior monk with their teacher for you're more or less required to stay with your teacher for a full 5 years before you have what's called independence. And that period of time is of close association with somebody who, the monk who is the ordaining teacher must have a minimum of 10 years in the robes, 10 years of experience with suttas and meditation, and you're going to be living side by side. They're going to be noticing how things are going for you, giving you advice on a regular basis. This is how it is. And by the way, those 5 years are not silent years. The Buddha actually had an objection to insisting on silence. There are, yes, quiet times. I would just say that meditation has to be geared to individuality and is not a sausage factory. You cannot pump people through a system, a silver bullet system, without casualties. And this is starting to come to the attention of psychologists and so forth, that you put people through these meditation courses without due care and attention, and you're going to have wounded casualties. So look, the mind is a delicate thing, and each person has their own their own needs. And if anybody is going to teach these meditation courses, you better be qualified to manage these things without damaging anybody. I'd say it's a significant negative karma for somebody to do that without due care and consideration. So that the results of that, you're experiencing typical results from that kind of thing. And what you need to do is just relax, be around people who are kindly and supportive of you, just to do simple tasks and to get some exercise, read things, and so forth, and not, and you will restore your sense of appropriate focus, which means this other secondary quality called sampajanya. You now have a lot of sati, like a single-pointed focus on this idea of the breath and so forth, but you need to have a panoramic awareness of the social situation and the situation that you're in, and that has been reduced by excessive practice of single-pointed focus. So you need to undo that and reestablish the balance between panoramic awareness and the ability to focus on a single topic for extended periods of time. So I wish you well with this, and note it, and I hope that others who are listening have some due consideration and apprehension about just plunging into any kind of extended retreat with very rigid parameters for lay people. This is out of 35 years of, more than that, 40 years of experience, having been in these and seen many types of these retreats, and given all kinds of these retreats myself, many. This is like, we are now, quite concerned, and consideration has to be applied to this. So let's go on to the next question, Bodhi.
Our next question comes from Anonymous in New Westminster, British Columbia. It seems when I do a lot of breath meditation, especially after an online retreat, that I suffer more from the hindrances during non-meditation times. Often I will switch to metta, as when I do that, it doesn't happen so intensely. Why does this happen, and is it common?
Yes, again, there are strong and strange effects from meditating. We have to understand, there's all kinds of books and spiritual autobiographies that go into the odd things that happen to you when you start using your mind in a different way. And so one must be aware of this. So loving kindness, metta, is a very good topic to be given out generally to people. And because it doesn't have too many damaging side effects, almost all of the other standard Buddhist topics can have problematic side effects. It's not something we do, and you need to be in a supported context where you can have conversations with experienced teachers to make you have a context and a proper understanding of what's going on in your mind. So this is why, if we're going to give out any kind of general practice which has very few negative side effects, that would be loving kindness. And so it is a good antidote to any kind of situation where you feel that it's getting worse, not better. But I would say this about your experience of the hindrances after doing a lot of focused meditation, aside from metta meditation, aside from loving kindness meditation, is that what happens is that your mindfulness increases, and you sometimes think you're going backwards. This is a sign of progress. When you think, in some ways, when you think you're getting worse, you're not getting worse, you're getting more observant. And it's kind of like a room that you've been living in for a long time, but has some very dim light bulbs. And then one day, you go out to the store and change the light bulbs. And what do you notice? That the room is filthy. The room is full of cobwebs and dust. And strangely, you never noticed this before. Why are you noticing it now? Did it suddenly happen that the room got messy? That it needed care and attention? No. The light increased. So this is what happens when you practice mindfulness, is that you become much more aware of what has always been there, but you got used to or were observing with only half the power of your attention capacity. So this being suddenly revealed that the room is a mess is actually a positive sign, and that being much more aware that one has irritation, anger, sadness, depression, distraction, agitation, paralytic doubt, etc., is all a matter of increase of awareness. So without going into great depth on this, we will leave that for now and go on to another question.
Our next question is live from Jonathan in Sweden. My question is regarding the second hindrance of ill will. Does it include all forms of aversion, or is it just the specific form of ill will? Thank you.
It basically is all forms of aversion. It's like irritability and mild dislike, and all of these things are forms of it. It's just a matter of how intense it is. Of course, even psychology and psychiatry know that real strong anger is very harmful to you. It damages your mind and your body and your social situation. So they try to talk that out of you or medicate strong anger out of you. But Buddhism is not satisfied with that. They wish to go to a state where you're not irritated by aversion. It's an irritant to the mind, a psychic irritant. It's primarily you're in defiant and objective. You're objecting to the universe. You're objecting to the situation in the universe. So you're mad that it's raining today. You're angry that somebody didn't show up for an appointment. You're mad at yourself. All these kind of things. This is futile and irrational, and of course very common in humans, and is in fact not thought to be a problem, but it is a problem. If you want true well-being and happiness, you have to purify the mind of all of these things eventually. But not make it a guilt trip. So, oops, I got angry, and now I'm a bad person for being angry. Now I'm angry at myself for being angry, etc. So these are things to avoid in your attempt to overcome your irrational aversion and argument with the universe, to realize how futile it is, to give up trying to run the universe, relax. In a very imperfect but relentless universe, we stop arguing with it. So this is the idea, and you will feel much relief, and you will also laugh at yourself that you were ever in an argument with the universe, because it always wins those arguments. There is no way to win an argument with the universe. So, that's in brief, but look at my more extensive talks on the YouTube channel. And I go into great detail about this topic of anger and what to do about it, and how far to take non-anger. Yes. Okay, Bodhi, next question.
Our next question is live from Gabrielle in Edmonton. My question is in regard to your book, Bloom. In the chapter on abandoning the world, you emphasize how motivations of anger or craving for worldly experiences shut the door to higher consciousness. Later, you speak of positive voices and passing the threshold of consciousness. Can you comment further on crossing that threshold? On what factors are essential to entering the higher states of mind?
So, Gabrielle, indeed, we need to at least temporarily suppress, and by the way, this word suppress and repress are bad words in psychology, but good words in intelligent spiritual practice. We need our tendencies to craving and aversion to be at least temporarily brought into cessation, so that we get to feel what it's like to be free of these psychic irritants. Most people can understand that anger is an abrasive and irritating. Some do not understand that the idea of the desire to go traveling around the world, etc., is also an impediment to their true well-being. Because sometimes things like that are accompanied by a feeling of anticipation and joy. However, it's also accompanied by a sense of lack. We feel that we're not truly fully happy and complete unless we can go to Italy. And this is a shame, because you really don't need to go to Italy, and you don't need to, a lot of the things that we think we need, we don't need. And what we want to experience is, what does it feel like to be free from this polarity of aversion and desire? What does it feel like to be free from both those poles? I call it being demagnetized. So you're pulled one way and another because you're made of a metallic structure that is susceptible to magnetic pull. What if you were demagnetized? Then you can roll down through the world without being influenced in either direction by needing and wanting and lacking and attempting to acquire shiny objects, etc., or being aversive and being in a hostile relationship with life and the universe. Imagine if you were free from these two things, and you could conduct yourself in sense of fullness and freedom. So this is what we're attempting. That's the threshold which we cross. And magnetic materials cannot cross that threshold. So it's a strange alchemy. And by the way, a lot of the ideas of alchemy where they're trying to turn lead into gold, are really secret spiritual language. We are trying to turn our magnetic structures into demagnetized structures. That's alchemy. It is the spiritual language. We're trying to free ourselves from the push and pull of the world. And to cross that threshold is to cross into what is often called heaven. So the heavenly consciousness, a feeling of lightness, freedom. There's a saying, I forget who said it, angels fly because they take themselves lightly. So when we're heavy and leaden and burdened, it's because of either desire or aversion, and we can't fly then. So we wish to fly, but we must take ourselves lightly. We must take the world very lightly. And then we feel we have crossed the threshold into another dimension of being. Okay, let's go on to the next question, Bodhi.
Our next question is from Lake. Dear Ajahn, from Portland, by the way. My question is, even though I experience great benefit from meditation on some days, it seems I will do almost anything to avoid it. Any guidance on why I do this and how to overcome this hindrance?
It's usually the shift is two different mental states. And when we're in a state of mild scatteredness or agitation, or we need the stimulus of distraction and entertainment and so forth, it seems a long ways to the peaceful place. So I want to talk a little bit about the advice that the Buddha and the commentaries give about this. When we get to a place of peace and ease and joy and so forth, what's our first duty to that? It's not actually to stay in it. It's really to make a map of how we got there and get a very detailed recollection of how we cross over from outward distracted mind to the inner peace, this beautiful little pond we found in the forest. So if we are wandering around out in nature and we come across a beautiful lake or forest or a cave or a place that is just magical and wonderful, and we sit down there and we have a great time, we just wonderful, we just manage to blunder our way in there. Then we go back home, and then a few months later we think, oh, I'd love to go back to that place. And you go back, well, now where was that road that I took? Oh, and then confusion, and you can't get back because you didn't make a good map of how to get there. So the first thing is, when you find a beautiful condition of the mind, make detailed notes of how you got there. What preceded it? What kind of day was it? What did you do that day? What kind of exposure did you have to outside distractions, to certain people? Sometimes, for instance, people are very powerful conditioning factors for the mind, and perhaps the most powerful. So if you had been associating with somebody who is peaceful and positive and joyful, and then you found yourself easily getting into a state of deep serenity and joy, perhaps, then that's a very good factor, and you must make a note of that. And if other times for 2 weeks you couldn't get out of a sense of hostility and futility because you'd been around people who are nothing but frustrating to you, must make a note of that as well. And so you know what you have to do is that you have to be careful of your associations with foolish people, and then you have to understand the value of associating with wise, uplifting people. So those are types of conditioning factors that you need to pay attention to. Instead of just willpower, oh, I must sit down and get back to the magic place, but I don't feel like it. I don't know how. Will it take me too long? Will it be a frustration? So this is the way you do this. You take careful notes about the preliminaries to make the journey from scattered, distracted to full, complete holiness. So mark the journey well. Make the path carefully marked. Next question.
Our next question is from Tisa and Molly from Chilliwack, BC. We have very successfully used your advice, don't think, when we go to bed. But during these times of isolation and reduced social interaction, we feel the urge to escape, just to get the focus of our attention to somewhere or something else, like coffee shop hangouts. How do we get out of that feeling? Mindfulness is being aware. Although we are very much aware of this feeling, we seldom can overcome it.
Well, I'm glad you are following my advice, and I give this on a regular basis to people. This is very important. I'm going to give it to everybody right now, is that a lot of people think at night. They lie awake trying to solve problems in their lives, and that it's the worst time to do that. It's not a good idea. The mind that you use at 2 in the morning is weakened. It's lost 30 IQ points. In other words, you're having a conversation with an idiot. Why would you take advice from an anxious, fearful idiot? You don't want that. You want to sleep is what you want. Sleep is a solution to a lot of things. It is the restoration of your energy and clarity. When you want to think is when you're at your best. You want to talk to the smartest, least fearful person. You don't want to talk to a person full of anxiety and so forth. You want to talk to somebody who's calm, fearless, hopefully courageous at least, and who has had breakfast and maybe some tea and or coffee, is fully awake and has some quiet time to really reflect and make decisions about your life, which are important. So this is very important kind of advice. Lots of people don't know that nighttime is the wrong time to think. Daytime, after you've had some food and so forth, is the right time to think in the right conditions. So this will save a lot of people a totally unnecessary potato sack full of suffering. Don't think at night. Now, the pandemic is, you've all been suddenly thrust into a spiritual retreat against your will. A worldwide restriction on your access to normal activities in the world. Now, for us in a monastery, there is no pandemic in some sense. We are not restricted in our movements or anything because we don't normally need to roam around in the world, or don't feel a need to. So we're of course still prone to getting sick if we make the wrong contact and so forth, but it's not a socially frustrating for us. But quite not unexpectedly, it is a feeling of a restlessness and stagnation for most people. And what we have to do is turn it into a positive thing. We have to embrace that and to use our mind optimally in order to maximize the benefit of this period of time. We will feel hemmed in, we will feel restless, but that's not really harmful. You got to say, this will pass, this too shall pass, and I shall come out the other side, and with a sense of appreciation for the ordinary effects of just dropping into a coffee shop, having a cup of coffee, chatting, looking out the window. Beautiful experience, can be a beautiful experience, and we'll have to find also some alternatives, such as walks in nature and so forth, which you can do during the pandemic. You can get off and go for a little walk in the park. And so you'll have to find substitute experiences, but also appreciate that after this is over, you will actually appreciate the capacity to just roam around spontaneously. This is what I having lived in broken down shacks and primitive situations for many years, one of the things that I really appreciate is just like a tap, a sink and a tap, where water just pours out of a tap. You can wash your hands, you can brush your teeth, you can have a shower. Quite an amazing benefit. But most people raised in modern times do not at all feel the thrill of being able to wash your hands by opening a tap. If you go and live the previous generation that lived on farms with outhouses and so forth, it took quite a few years to stop celebrating the fact that you could just turn a tap on and wash your hands. So I think people had not really appreciated the fact that they could just roam around, hop in a car, go to a cafe, etc. But now you will. So there will be an upside to this as well. Okay, Bodhi, please, another question.
Our next question is from Mark in Calgary, pertaining to the 4 elements. As so much of our lives are determined by testosterone, estrogen, serotonin, and dopamine, can metta be used to balance them?
Yes. Those are another interesting set of 4 elements, chemicals in the body, which have an interplay with the mind. Yes, loving kindness, the real cultivation of loving kindness is the source of the best of your internal chemicals. It is bathing in a certain kind of chemical, and you can see that people take chemicals that emulate, that are similar to the chemical of loving kindness, and they become very loyal to it. Now, this is a very interesting area, a huge area to be understood. The nature of why people take drugs, alcohol and drugs. It is to restore a sense of ease, of a reduction of pain, and if they're fortunate, presence of ease. So it's just to the degree that this chemical which accompanies loving kindness is absent in the body, that one will attempt to find it. And if one doesn't go through systematic introspection, meditation, association with wise, kind, loving people, one will attempt to find it through drugs. And so there's many accounts of people, especially who have had difficult childhoods, where they've never experienced a sense of relaxed kindness that flows through you when you have a sense of safety and friendliness. So children that are raised in a beautiful family structure where everybody is taking care of them easily access a state of relaxed, friendly, safe, worry-free states of being. But where that is absent, and they have never experienced that, the interior life is very unpleasant. It's a state of pain. And the first time that person encounters certain types of drugs, one of them particularly being any kind of painkiller, heroin being the most famous of those, the first time if they encounter heroin or even morphine, they feel like it might be the first time in their life they've ever been hugged, and that they become desperately loyal. They fall in love with that experience because it's a crude approximation of what it is to feel love. And so notice that I would say the majority of people are not addicted to heavy drugs. And some of them have, and of course, many people who have been in a hospital have been exposed to morphine, but have no addictive tendency to it. And the reason why is that they don't have a deficit. The morphine is not filling something that's absent in them. But certain people have no feeling of ease and no relief from the pain of life. So when they contact morphine or heroin or some of these drugs, they get a relief from pain. So this is why, of all emotions and all cultivations, loving kindness is the first one to human well-being. This is why one must find and cultivate this. And you need to, if you need to go to the ends of the earth to find this, you should. And a very bad replacement for it is any kind of drug is a very bad replacement for it. It's never as good, and it has very negative side effects. So whatever it takes to find situations and people who will talk you into a state of safety, friendliness, loving kindness, you should seek that out until you experience it. And then it's yours. And then you need to generate it again and again and again, very deliberately. Quite independent of the events of the world around you, you need to cultivate loving kindness because it's the maximal beneficial emotion for you. All your thoughts, your body's response to this is it's a health emotion. It can relieve illnesses. It can let you sleep properly. It can relieve you of negative, bad dreams. It can make you enter into good company. Even the animals appreciate you. You're full of loving kindness. The dogs like you. Now, please go and listen to my extensive retreats on loving kindness. 10 days of immersion in loving kindness. If you can't find anybody around you to do this, then just go to Ajahn Sona channel, YouTube channel, and just immerse yourself in the loving kindness talks until you start to feel it. Yeah. And let us go on. Another question.
Our next one is quite related, from Brian in Penticton. My question is, how should one approach the generation of metta when the body is not cooperating? I have Parkinson's disease, and when I experience periods when my medication is not working, it seems impossible to generate deeply felt friendliness. Any suggestions would be greatly appreciated.
Yes, we have to start before the medication stops working. So we can't just bring this up when situation is difficult. We need a lot of practice so that it carries us through states, conditions where our body is ill. And we can do this. It's also happens to be one of the best anesthetics, reduction of bodily pain. Concentration as well, like to reduce a sense of bodily pain and so forth, if we focus our mind away from that onto a single object, we can feel a sense of relief through the body. So loving kindness, if you do it, throw everything in. You got to jump off the edge into the lake of loving kindness. You can't just stand there and gaze at it. It's got to be total immersion. And you might need the voice of another to help you with this. So again, go back to my talks and so forth, and let me talk you into it. This is guided loving kindness, like you can listen for hours to the benefits and the encouragement to come in and swim in the lake of loving kindness, to float on your back, to look at the sky, to go on a complete holiday into another dimension where you're in harmony and fearless with the rest of the universe. All things fall away, and even the fear of death falls away with loving kindness. And it's very important to touch on that in this life. So all I can encourage you is go deeper, longer, go on a all expense paid holiday into loving kindness. You will be utterly refreshed and helped by this. And use all the resources that you can find, and especially the voice of another pulling you into that experience. Okay. Do we have time for one more question, perhaps? Yes.
One last, and we're on a meta roll. So this is from Anonymous in Cinderford, Gloucestershire, England. I am currently going through a breakup. We have children, so it's complicated and needing tact. I know I wish to practice metta with this and use this painful opportunity as fuel, but I am overcome by my emotions of sadness and anger sometimes, and memories of other losses. How can this situation be handled skillfully?
This is very difficult. It's probably the hardest experience that you can have is processing through a long, extracting yourself from a long relationship, very important, deep relationship. And it's just famous in history that's about loss, separation is just one of the hardest things to do. Part of it is that we believe we should feel certain feelings, that it's truly sad, it's truly this, it's truly that. And when you read spiritual language, they seem to be indifferent to these things. And so you have to make a choice that it's actually moral and okay not to be swept away in nostalgia and regret and so forth. Most people think that they have to, that it's proper, that it's human to feel these things. And all of the country and western songs are about this, you know. All of the good romantic songs are about this. This is, don't we need to feel the sorrow, the regret, the nostalgia, the etc.? Isn't that what we're supposed to feel? Now, so you have another type of voice talking to you from the philosopher, the wise person. They say, such is the nature of being human that things don't work out. Miscommunication happens. People die. People go away. And this is just reality. And we have a choice about how we view this. We say, just so. This is how it truly is. Now I have a choice about how I feel about these things. I do not have to have nostalgia and regret. I do not have to go there. I do not have to think about it either. If I can't bring it to mind without negative experience, then I really don't need to bring it to mind. It's not like that I'm somehow going to damage myself by repressing certain memories or suppressing certain memories. You'll hear this in psychology talk all the time. That's bad advice, actually. Suppression and repression, etc., is quite often a very good thing to do. And we also know that given some time and a different lifestyle and with different situations, these memories become less problematic. And at some point in our life, we can bring them up with a totally different emotional experience with them. We actually feel soft, tender love over some of these memories. the, the breaking up of a family, the breaking up of relationships, the loss of people is not always simply sad or tragic. They're actually very rich experiences, and some of the parts of the experience are beautiful and tender, and those ones you keep. But the ones that are full of guilt, resentment, grudges, we do not keep. We choose amongst the ingredients there, and some are to be abandoned and set aside and not remembered, and some are to be cultivated and remembered because they're positive. So amongst these complex emotions, choose the ones that move your heart in a positive way. Keep those. The ones that are negative, futile, psychic irritants, heart irritants, put those aside. Do not bring them to mind. Let lots of time go by. Let years go by before you review those situations. And you can do this, but you need to be encouraged to do this. So I'm encouraging you to be selective about what you think about. Keep the good ones. Don't dwell on the negative ones. Feel free to suppress your memories of those. Okay, that has taken us to the end of our live stream, and we wish you well, and I hope that it all worked on this snowy day on our satellite dish. Yes.